All right, today's guest, Robert Voyles. He's in the city of Bakersfield. And Robert and I think, exchanged emails like a year and a half or 2 years ago because we caught each other in an event, or I can't remember what it was, but we caught each other and we had an exchange. And I hit him back a couple of weeks ago and I said, hey, we'd love to have you come on and talk about your journey and what airport life is like in Bakersfield. Any advice that you might have for anybody looking to get into airport or aviation operations, and just kind of, tell us your story. And Robert, what we usually do is we don't really introduce our guests. They introduce themselves, and in that introduction, they might share their why, their passion for aviation, why they do what they do every day. So what I'm going to do, Robert, is I'm going to turn this over to you. And whatever format you want this to be, let me know. It could be question and answer. We can open it up to our candidates to ask questions. We are recording this so that our other candidates who are not on this show right now can be watching this, in a recorded version. So I'll just let you have it, and then we'll kind of go from there. But Robert, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I think I'll just start with just kind of introducing myself and explain how my progression and how I got to where I am now and what I am now, and then let you guys ask me any questions or talk about it. So I'm Robert Voyles. I'm the Public Works Operations Manager for the city of Bakersfield. So my path I am currently also the airport manager for Bakersfield Municipal Airport, Lima 45. So it's a 4,000 foot runway municipal airport, no commercial airfare, air carriers or anything like that. Mostly flight school, mostly general aviation, an EA chapter, a lot of agricultural flying and business flying, people flying in maybe on small jets and stuff for meetings, that kind of thing. But let me just how I got here. So I've been with the city of Bakersfield for 25 years. I started off as an engineering aide on a survey crew. So nothing to do with aviation whatsoever, other than I would be involved in the airport projects that they would do when they would do repave a runway, build a new taxiway, anything like that. I would be involved in a minor role of, doing the land surveying and laying it out for the contractors to build. So that's kind of how it all started. I had just kind of moved up over the years of doing that, and then becoming a construction inspector, where I inspected the projects at the city airport. And I inspected all the other projects around the city as well. We're a city of about 400,000 people. So we have lots of projects. We do about 50 to $60 million worth of projects a year, and only a small portion of those were airport related. So what had happened though is, with that, over the years, I did all these projects at the airport. So I kind of became just the expert in dealing with the FAA and making sure we meet all their requirements and doing the reports for them, on the construction management side. And so what happened was I moved up, I took over all construction for the city of Bakersfield. And then I got an opportunity to become the Public Works Operations Manager. You're going to find with some of the municipal airports that are owned by cities and counties, sometimes the airport manager is a multi-role job. So I'm the Public Works Operation. I'm in charge of general services, street maintenance, fleet maintenance, and my side job is the airport. So, and so I really had no aviation background other than just doing all the construction there. So I have a manager for all those other divisions, except for the airport I do myself. And so, since I had a lot of experience in doing FAA grants for construction and dealing with them, it kind of helped me get that job as well. So, so that's how I kind of got to where I am now. So I wasn't involved in aviation otherwise. So then I became the airport manager of an airport with kind of a history of about 16 to 18 years ago. The city of Bakersfield, we had a city council person that wanted to close our airport. And so we kind of lost the trust of our tenants and the aviation community in our town. And so that was one of the first things I identified. I went to a EAA meeting just to get to know some of the airport tenants, and I found a mistrust of the city, and really a lot of people were pretty angry at the city. And so I started going to their meetings, every month, and I'd help out at their events just to kind of get to know what they needed, and they went from being hostile to me to actually really appreciate me being there and taking an interest in them being successful. And that kind of moved on from there. Really, that attitude and mistrust of the city resulted in very little aviation related improvements at the airport. In other words, nobody wanted to build a hangar at an airport where they weren't sure that the airport was always going to be there. Right. So that's been my journey. I've been the airport manager for the last 3 years, and that's kind of really totally turned around. We have a lot of interest, and it looks like, we may have some hangars starting to build again. And we went from an airport that had no FBO, no services for the other than a self-serve fueling tank. We had no mechanics on site, no flight school, no nothing other than an EA chapter and a fuel tank, to we have all those things down. So we've kind of rebuilt our trust with them. And so now we have services and mechanics working on site. We have a flight school on site, and actually probably the most successful flight school in town. So that's kind of been my journey with that. And so then I started hanging out with all these pilots and things. And I said, well, if these guys can fly, well, I could do that. And so I decided to get my pilot's license, and so that even further helped me get accepted and get the, people to trust the airport again. So it's kind of been a fun journey. It's actually my favorite part of my job. I do all these other things, but the airport's my side job, but it's my most fun job. So I find any excuse to be at the airport a good thing. So my journey there wasn't really typical, probably. But you will see a lot of smaller, like municipal airports, where that's what the airport manager has multiple roles, and that's just a side job of the airport manager. But it's so my focus now is on developing the airport, trying to get hangars built. I've leased a whole lot of land at the airport that helps pay for fees and make the airport self-sustaining. They were already paying for themselves almost, but we've improved that immensely in the last 3 years. So that's our big goal. A lot of it is property management is a big job of airport manager, is negotiating leases with aviation related businesses, or just personal tenants that want to have a hangar there, or even surrounding just industrial uses that want to use parts that are airport property that isn't really usable for aviation. We use those as the big income makers that helps offset all the costs and helps us keep all the costs for pilots and aviation low. So that's actually, we make half of our money from non-aviation related items and tenants that rent land from us for different uses. So anyway, I took half my check ride last week, and I'm taking the other half probably next week. So we'll see. So that's kind of been my journey. I don't know if anybody has any questions, or if they're interested in anything in particular, or I'm open for that.
It sounds like you juggle, right? You have all these roles.
Yes.
And now you're managing this airport.
Yes.
And it's a growing airport, and you have all these things happening. You've got to be in charge of manpower to budgeting. You're writing these grants, so you're definitely forecasting. What else might I be missing?
Well, I mean, you have everything from compliance with regulations, and right now I have a land use plans, and we have like a school that wants to build right underneath our our airport traffic pattern. And so you're dealing with planning issues. And, do you allow that school to be right underneath the traffic pattern, which, our land use policies say no, but, politicians say, oh yeah, we want that, we want to encourage this. But but then you find out more information and it's an adult school, it's a trade school, it's not kids, but that's not what the original application says. So you have a lot of stuff like that. We have a small staff. So I have one full-time maintenance guy that all he does is take care of the airport. I have a full-time secretary that manages all the leases as far as doing all the leases, taking things to city council to approve leases, that kind of thing, and supports it administratively. And then other than that, I have a lot of support people from other parts of the city that have other roles as well, but they do the billing, for tenants, that kind of thing. And then the nice thing about my role of being in charge of all these things is I can steal manpower from other parts of the city and do my work without having to hire contractors. And so I can save the city a lot of money. So if I need an area of the airport paved, well, I'm in charge of street maintenance. I just send my street maintenance guys out there and they can pave an area. But you spend a lot of your time is spent is either managing leases, trying to create new revenues to pay for the airport, and then also trying to get grants. And so there's the airport improvement program that we deal with the FAA, and that's a huge part of my job is trying to identify the needs and what should we improve next. We need to pave the new taxiway, or do we need to upgrade the lighting at the airport? And so it's a lot of planning. You're looking 5 to 10 years out all the time at what needs to be done next, because it takes that long to go through environmental review, getting a grant to design it, designing it for a year, getting another grant, trying to get another grant from the FAA to actually build the improvements or repave the runway, those kinds of things. So we plan 5 to 10 years out all the time. And so, there's, you really can't just, people bring up a lot of, hey, it would be really neat to do this. Well, that's true, but it takes a long time to get there. So you have to be planning those things a long time ahead of time. So there's a lot of personnel management. We have, our own maintenance people, but those people make or break the relationships with the airport tenants as well, because when they see our maintenance people, oh, you got a problem with your hangar door? Yeah, we'll fix that, and he'll fix it right then. And where previously, you could complain about a problem at the airport and maybe it never got fixed, right? So there's those aspects as well. So.
Well, did you know that when you were going to school that you're going to be writing grants someday?
No,
did you aspire to that?
No, not at all. It's funny. I started here. I had no degree at all. Actually, when I started at the city, I had been a engineering student that had dropped out, and basically went to work for the city. And so I had a really strong math background. That's how I became a surveyor. And then I started working for the city, and then I realized if I don't finish my education, I'm kind of stuck where I'm at. And so I finished. I went back. I have a degree in business management, so that's what I ended up finishing and getting my degree in, and that's what allowed me to get move up and take on those managerial roles and take on those other types of things. Without that, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am. So
that's awesome. And not everybody goes into aviation because that's their destination. Like it's my destiny to be in aviation. Not everybody winds up there. And it's so cool to meet people who come from other walks who end up in what they find to be their passion spot. And that's what I'm hearing from you, which is pretty nice. Question
I had no clue ever that I would have anything to do with airports or airplanes, I always thought airplanes were neat, but other than that, that was the extent. I didn't know anybody that flew. I knew nobody that had anything to do with airports. but it's funny now. It's like, yeah, I went to go get my pilot's license, but my wife, she's a student pilot. My 16-year-old is, my 14-year-old is, and even my 8-year-old has logged hours. So we bought a plane, and yeah, now this is our thing. But it wasn't at all, just 3 years ago. So.
And now you can't get out. That's awesome. That's inspiring to hear. You've spoken a lot about relationships, whether it was to, manage your other roles, your various roles, or to get the grants done. You talked about going in front of the city council. Can you talk to us about the importance, the value of, say, like networking, building relationships to achieve what you want to achieve?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, relationships a lot of times are your biggest resources, right? Because you only know what you know, and what you have experience with. So even as brand new airport manager that really knew only about airport grants and construction, but knew nothing about anything else about running an airport at the beginning. We have SWAI, our airport executive association that I'm a member of, and California Association of Airports, and where we all network by emails or conferences and those kinds of things. That's where I first heard about you, was at one of those conferences. And I just thought it was interesting. So I think I had reached out to you then. But those are, when I haven't dealt with a situation before, those are the people I can, hey, just send out an email to the group and say, hey, has anybody dealt with this before? Or does anybody have an example agreement that, for, installing this, or for leases, or how do you handle this? And we can pick each other's brains and help each other. And I've been able to do that for others as well. But yeah, that networking outside the city, as well as our own internal people, goes a long ways. And the networking within the airport tenants, even, and the businesses on the airport, when they know they're not suspicious of you, and they have a good relationship with you, they're my eyes and ears out there every day, because I'm not actually located at the airport. I don't have an office there. I visit every day, but they call me on weekends. They all have my cell phone number. They all know me. They can all call me or just text me if there's something leaking, and I just send one of my people out, or sometimes I go do it myself. I went out there and fixed the airport gate myself in the middle of the night before, because I didn't want to wake my guy up, right? And so, but yeah, networking is huge too, and as far as getting the support, and then coming up even within the city itself, you want to have good relationships. You want to be one of those cooperative people that are the go-to people, right? The people that they know they can bring this to you, and you're going to do your best to help them out. Doesn't mean you're going to do everything for them, but that they know that you're going to give whatever assistance you can. And my theory in management, not just airports, but I have 220 employees. So is I tell my guys, we do, and you do as each division, the general services, electricians, carpenters, graffiti people, painters, people that do remodels, street maintenance. They pave roads. They maintain all the sewers and the sewer lift stations and those kinds of things. We do whatever we're good at. And so if some other division or some other part of the organization asks for your assistance, you don't say, hey, that's not ours, that's yours. We help where we can. And if this is something they're asking us to do, something we're good at, we're going to do it. And that cooperative attitude usually gets reciprocated. So you get the same thing back from others. So as soon as you ask them something, they're like, oh, Rob always helps me out on anything I call him for. I'm going to help him out. And that's really, not 100% of everybody's that way, but 98% of them are. So I think that's really important.
Nice. Manu, do you have a question? Fire away. Unmute yourself.
Yes, I have a question. Thank you, Pete, for letting me talk. And hi, everyone, and hi, Robert. And thank you so much for what you said. It's like really inspiring. And I had a question about, so you said your first background was in engineering, mathematics, even if you dropped out of college, which is completely fine. But then you said, so you had a bit of experience in like STEM. And after that, you said you got a degree in business. And I would like to know how the business knowledge and degree helped you to become a better person, I would say, or a better manager in your role. And I'm curious to know that. And because if I can say for me, I'm looking maybe to continue and to get an MBA, but the MBA is like 2 years, and I'm not sure if I want to do that for 2 years because kind of, well, anyway, but I can talk a bit more about that with Pete, but because I'm really, really interested into also physics, quantum physics, astrophysics, and everything about aviation. So I'm not sure if I want to do 2 years of MBA. And also I have a bachelor in aerospace engineering that I got in France, because as you can hear, I come from France. So yeah, so what about the business, how it has helps you, this degree, in your career?
Well, honestly, I think it was interesting the way I did it. Instead of going, and not that I'm not trying to discourage anybody from at all from going to school and getting it done right away. I think it's great, but I think it's great to have somewhere to actually see practical application too. And so it was actually a big advantage that I had already been in the workplace, already been in a working for this city and seeing the basically how the city is managed while I'm going to school. So I had that practical application. So every time I took a course in human resources, I had already seen human resources in action, or I've seen, like in budgets and finance, I had already prepared budgets for when I was a supervisor over a small section of like 10 or 12 guys. I still had my budget that I had to prepare every day. So when I took accounting classes, it all correlated. And so I could see practical application. And that was actually, it was way more interesting to me than I could actually relate to the classes I was taking, because I could see, oh, I see that's very useful, or I've dealt with that before. And it really made it easy because you could just write papers, after paper based on something you've actually experienced, compared to something maybe if you hadn't been in the workplace at all, you may not have any. So you want to try to find places, in my opinion, where you can get practical application as well as your education. So the engineering side, it's very useful for me because, well, I'm still over many other things that we build things, right? So I'm in charge of maintenance of every facility in the city, basically every building, every road. So everything is, every bridge, it's all engineering related, as well as the business side. You're dealing with contractors, you're dealing with contracts, you're dealing with, everything from, at the airport, leases or leasing land, or writing contracts for city council approval. So that's where the business really is useful. I write agreements with contractors or with land developers all the time, and I have to send those to city council, send them to our city attorneys for review. And a lot of times, it's funny, you have these attorneys, but they don't really know anything about our subject matter, right? They know legalese, they know all the right language and all these terms that need to be in here to protect ourselves, but they don't really understand the work. So they don't write the contracts. I write the contracts, and then they review them, and they just make sure I have all the special protections that they're looking for. So I send things to city council. I have to do presentations before city council sometimes, or in front of city council people or different groups. I have congressmen that we deal with on we got $1 billion worth of highway funds. Well, in the state of California, Caltrans, if you left them to build it, it would take them 20 years. So they gave the money to us to build a freeway for Caltrans, and we give it to them when we're done. So then I managed a large portion of that too. And so you deal with all those things, and that's where business, I think, is for me was extremely rewarding and worthwhile, because you get a taste of all those things. So
That's right. And I see, Chandra, that you have raised your hands, but I just would like to ask you, Robert, if was like you got a degree, like an MBA or a bachelor in business?
I just have a bachelor's degree in business management.
Yes.
So I thought about getting my MBA and realized, it's 2 years, but it's there's a lot of online programs and other things that you can do those while doing something else as well. So, so I have a bachelor's, and I thought about going further, but I'm actually closer. I've already been there 25 years. I'm not that far from retirement. So I was like, well, I could get my MBA and then work for 3 to 5 more years and then retire. So it's probably not worth the investing the 2 more years for me, just because of how late in my career I got my degree. So
that's right. And do you think, because you said that you already had the experience, the practical experience for business, and you already knew when you had some classes, you already knew what they were talking about. Do you think those 4 years and huge investment, financial, and just 4 years of studying were really helpful, like to have the degree, knowing that you already had the experience? Because for me, it's kind of the question I'm questioning about that. But I could talk more about that with Pete, I guess. But I just would like to know about your.
Yeah, I think it was 100% worth it. Not just because for one thing, it opens doors that may not otherwise be open to you whatsoever, right? So you may not even be considered for a position if you don't have the prerequisites, right? And so, you're not going to be a manager of, 3 divisions, 4 divisions, including the airport, without a degree. I mean, that's a basic requirement for the job. So you definitely opening doors by having them, but the writing skills and the analytical skills and the budgeting skills, my overall budget between all my different departments is, probably about $150 million. So a year. And so managing those things, that's where business is extremely useful, and budgeting. And, tonight we're actually presenting our budget to city council for approval, right? And so if they have questions, we need to be able to explain them. So it was well invested in my opinion, plus the writing skills and those types of things. I'm always writing letters to California Department of Aeronautics or FAA or I'm arguing over money with a contractor, right? So you need to be able to have that kind of analytical writing that you can present a good argument, right? So
nice. One more question, Chandra.
Hello, Mr. Richard. Nice to meet you. And as you said before, you didn't have any trust on the airport and you don't have any flight school here on the airport. And how did you manage to get the flight school in?
Well, I think relationships, we had a lease that a tenant that had leased and entered into an agreement with the city about 20 years ago, or 20 years prior. And they had a flight school there, and they had a pipeline patrol business there, and a FBO with some mechanics and that kind of thing 20 years ago. Well, of course, that business sold to another business that wasn't interested in any of those other things, but they had this current lease. And that's kind of the importance of writing good leases with requirements. So they weren't, per that lease, they really weren't required any minimum level of service to the airport or to the tenants. So they were required to manage our fueling tank, But beyond that, they weren't required to have a flight school or an FBO or mechanics or anything or provide any services to the airport. And so their lease was coming up. They were wanting to renew it, and and I basically let them know that, hey, we're not interested in that. We need someone here that actually provides services to our general aviation community. So I let them know I wasn't going to renew their lease, and actually I took a rent cut by about 50% as part of the negotiations, and did a request for qualification and proposal. And I sent that out out through the aviation industry, looking for prospective tenants and people that might want to start an FBO. And so I got several responses. And then we had an evaluation team that we evaluated all the proposals, and we said, well, what's best for the airport? And it wasn't necessarily the one that gave us the most rent. It was who was really going to provide services to our tenants and actually make our airport grow. So we actually took less money, but we had somebody that was willing to, invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into our facility, and establish a flight school, establish actual airplane mechanics and a repair center. And they actually, they're really big into, they've established, they are now the sole distributor for like a aircraft, experimental aircraft engine company. And they're the only installer in the country too. So they're building like planes for the Reno Air Races and, those kinds of things. And it's kind of exciting. So we've kind of found our niche is the experimental aviation and general aviation world. And so we have all these experimental planes always coming down here to get that 800 horsepower, engine installed in their airplane. So basically, evaluating what's best for the airport and picking that above just who pays the most rent, so that's kind of how we got there. So.
Robert, thank you. We're gone over time. So I know I have 5 more questions for you, but we're not going to get to them. And I want to let you know that we have candidates all over the world. I mean, you just met 2 of them, and they're outstanding candidates in their own right. And we even have students who are going to Cal Aero just up the road from you.
Oh, okay.
So they'll be watching this as well. But just want to thank you for coming to us and sharing your story and giving a little advice. And really, it was your story that compelled me. It was super appealing. And now I just want to go out and meet you, and I want to check out the airport. So if that's okay, maybe all of us can come one day just to say hello. But I want to thank you for coming to us, spending your time with us. I know you're busy. You've got to go to see the city council later today. And by you giving us the time, that means a lot to us. So we very much appreciate it. Any lasting comment you want to share? Any advice you want to share before we end the call?
Well, just, keep at it, guys. And then I think I was just compelled and excited about your group, just because I wish I had known about this kind of thing when I was, a young person, be it high school or college student or whatever. And I think that would have been I don't know how exactly that would have went, but it definitely would have, I don't know. I think that's a great support, and it would have helped me even see a possibility in aviation where I kind of fell into it and got lucky, but I don't, I think the biggest boundary for most people is they don't even see how that's even possible. How do you even break into aviation? How do you become a pilot? How do you become work for an airport? I had never even thought of those things as a young person. So anyway, I would just say, keep at it. And I know sometimes it's hard to see the path there, but there is a path, and sometimes it's not always the one you expected, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. So appreciate it.
That's pretty sound advice, and we truly appreciate it.